In this video, we're going to talk about the various challenges of going abroad politically and legally. And we're going to start with what it's like to go abroad from your home country, focusing mostly on as an American business going abroad. Navigating the political and legal environment can be quite challenging. There's a regulation for probably about everything you do, even the breath you take. So just be ready when you're doing business to do or to have a legal mindset in the background as you make decisions. So what about home country? What is the purpose of global business restrictions? You will learn about your policy tool belt and the different transnational laws that are out there for you. So why do countries restrict global business? It may seem easy at first, but it's actually to protect local economy and society. And of course, a lot of politics in between. But what are we protecting from? That's the next question. We want to protect growing young industries, protect foreign adversaries and terrorists, protect citizens from harmful goods, and security, or protecting vital industries. I cannot stress enough this section. Food security. The European Union's Central Agricultural Policy focuses highly on protecting the small farmer. And if you look in Germany, they have about 3/4 of their arable land in use, reserving another quarter in case of emergencies. Also, energy security. The United States and the world faced an oil crisis in the 1970s, thus propagating us to buy millions of barrels of oil a year and reserving it in case we need it. Technology security. Data protection in the EU is very important, something we need to start talking about more in the United States, as well as trade secrets, and such as today, AI technology and bio-nanotechnology and pharmaceutical technology. Health. Vital supplies that combat pandemics and catastrophes. We used to have reserve in California. That kind of just waned away. But unfortunately, if you look at the facts, we have much of our production still abroad. So not only do we not have reserves, we don't even have a manufacturing system capable of handling our own crises, especially one that may be global. Environmental. Oil spills, contamination in clean air, and food sustainability are some of the key drivers of any of the environmental impacts. So, what tools are used to restrict global business? Let's start with import controls. Tariffs. Taxes on imports that raise the price of the goods. No matter what you've heard in the media, the end consumer is the one that pays the price. I cannot stress that enough. It doesn't pay for a wall. It makes the coffers rich in Washington, D.C., and at the same time raises prices on the consumers. That's about it. Non-tariff barriers are things like quotas, technology requirements or specification requirements, price controls, subsidies for domestic producers. Unfortunately, I worked at a luxury eyewear manufacturer that was trying to send their frames to the United States and found the frame lens requirement too strict compared to what the Americans had to use or had to apply. And that's what you'll see. It gives a competitive advantage for American producers. The list is on and on. The link I'll provide as well in the slides, it talks about all the different types of non-tariff barriers and what they mean to you. So please take a look at it and keep your game hat ready to go. Because you're going to need to know these things when you do business. What about restricting what can leave the country? Export controls. Food exports. We want to protect fisheries in the United States. Particularly if you look at Norway, they didn't want to be a part of the European Union the same way because they wanted to protect their fisheries from Spanish and English fishers from coming in. Land use and for agriculture, knowing what we're allowing to grow and erode for foreign countries, we need that food. Non-agricultural purposes as well. We also restrict what can come in terms of the amount of sugar, by the way, from Brazil. Oil and gas. We want to ensure energy sustainability. Weapons and armaments is probably one of the biggest ones, especially the developed world. We are worried much more about dual-use products too. Goods and technologies that can be used for both military and civilian purposes, and anything that could be converted from civilian purposes to military use. You can check out the joint list of the European Union that regulates this. It is scary. We found North Koreans in Syria as late as 2 to 3 years ago, and if they have access to certain biochemicals that we use for our American goods, that gives them access to weapons, and they will use it on their civilians and foreign adversaries. So, can the U.S. regulate your behavior abroad? When you're doing business abroad, can they come and get you? We've seen time and time again, companies like Apple and Facebook and Google get away with practically anything. But I promise you, they cannot. They do have to abide by the laws in the United States. Not all laws, certain laws. They're called transnational laws, laws that reach outside the home country. In this case, bribery is covered by the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Bribery is a serious situation. Dole, the banana producer, was fined $25 million in Colombia for their bribery. Bribery is so common around the world that up until 1997, Austria allowed bribery for their businesses. Shocker. Bribery and other similar actions, facilitation payments, got Siemens, a famous German appliance maker and manufacturer, in deep trouble. To this day, they're still facing the consequences of a bad public opinion. Financial regulations, regulating how you do your accounting. Under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act requires you to be more transparent with how your company is reporting. That will affect you abroad. There are different standards that are changing, such as the International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, versus GAAP policies, which are national-oriented. So you'll learn those as you go along in your accounting and finance courses, but for the purposes of this, it's all about transparency. Taxes. You can be taxed abroad, even as an individual American, not just businesses. They're called Bilateral Tax Treaties that are modeled after the OECD Model Convention. The link here provided shows you the most up-to-date version of this. They're only bilateral, so countries like Germany, France can also get into their own agreements without requiring the European Union. Even though the European Union has ideas of what they want to be done, it's not really any enforced regulations. So these are bilateral agreements, and the United States, of course, being the biggest player in using tax treaties to get you to pay taxes. Boils down to your liability and finding how much liability you have in one country versus another so they can make you pay and also help you not double pay for the same thing. And there are mechanisms around that. And very fun. I love that course in my master's program. Just to see what people will do to not pay taxes, it's insane. But try to pay your taxes. It's a duty of the society. And it's crazy to see that companies like Facebook, Google, and Silicon Valley get away with such behavior. Then you have environmental laws could affect you. Antitrust laws. The United States has some of the strongest competition law in the world, and it's been 100+ years in the making. Amazing work there. The European Union even is trying to build better competition law, but there's very different components. Highly recommend you look into it and check it out. It's pretty cool. But what we do, for example, is if you're in trouble for any particular anti-competitive behavior, we have double and treble fines. So say you do something and the court says you owe $600 million. Well, if it's an anti-competition law being applied, you could owe $1.8 billion. So behave and follow the rules, and this is what keeps fair competition. This is what makes America unique and very strong compared to the other nations, is how we are overall pro-competition. So hope you enjoyed that. Remember, the United States can come after you abroad. Remember, there are a number of different barriers to trade and business. So know what they are even when you're going abroad. And also know that laws come with a purpose. There is a national interest in mind. So hope that helps.